Welcome back to Cocktails and Confidence, the podcast. My name is Key. Well, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Keydrick. But I go by Key because it's easier, and obviously it's the first half of my name, and I spell it like a key to a lock because I could play on the word, right? So when I'm meeting people, I'm like, yeah, my name is Key, like a key to a lock, and on some corny shit.
And hey everybody, my name is Moo. My real name is Shanquinice, for those of you guys that don't know me. And trust me, I know that's complicated, but you guys are more than welcome to call me Moo. It is a childhood name, so if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. Question of the day. Moo, do you belong to the streets? I just want to know.
Nah, man, I'm not out there in the streets. Nah. You belong to the streets? Look.
Not these Houston streets. This is a lot of traffic.
Some other streets or what? What you
No,
want?
I don't belong to the streets. I don't even know what that means. I'm assuming it means that
you're out there.
You're out there, right?
Yeah. Nah, I'm not out there though.
Anyways, thank you guys for checking out our very first YouTube video, subscribing, liking, commenting. We appreciate it so much.
Yes.
We see the supporters. We see you. We thank you. And we're very glad to have you.
Yes.
And we're just glad that this is helping. As far as the feedback we're receiving, a lot of people are like, this is really, really nice. And you guys are just really giving helpful information. So we're glad that you like it. We're glad that you're enjoying it and you're keeping us going. So thank you for that. Sure. Thank you for sharing it. I mean, I've known some people to share it on every social media account that they have.
Yes.
Like you know who you are.
Real ones. Facts. But you know how we like to do it. We like to get straight into it. As you know, this is a podcast built off or around self-development. And when it comes to self-development, I feel like you just have to dive right into it. You just have to do it. Yeah.
Whatever it takes. And so we just want to dive right in. Today, we are talking about what we feel our generation fears the most. That being vulnerability. Yes.
It's very deep. Y'all see I had to take a drink on that.
Take a sip on that my palms are sweating because we have to get vulnerable to do what we're doing. Yes. So we just want to kind of break down what vulnerability means to us and how it's really not as bad as our generation makes it seem.
Right.
So vulnerability. We like facts, so we're going to start with the definition of vulnerability. And Webster states that vulnerability is the quality or state of having little resistance to some outside agent. The part that stands out to me the most is state of having little resistance to some outside agent. So when I think of resisting less or little, I think of being able to move forward.
Right.
So when I look at it from that perspective or think of it in that way, I think of vulnerability being a way that I could really just free myself and move beyond challenges and fears and such. So that's what I see vulnerability as. But we did collect some points that we feel may help you, that has helped us.
For sure.
Just really look deep into what vulnerability is besides what we would leave it to be based off of our past experiences.
Yeah. I think... I was just going to say, in order to be vulnerable, you have to open yourself up. You know what I mean? You have to allow yourself to feel certain emotions, and you can't block things off. And I think a lot of times we aren't able to be vulnerable is because we hold on to pain and hurt, and we hold on to those negative emotions that block us from getting to the good emotions, which is joy, happiness, like you said, freeing yourself, you know what I mean? And being strong. It takes a lot of strength and courage to be able to be vulnerable.
Yes. And I really feel like, I totally understand why we fear vulnerability, because I understand why I fear it sometimes, for many reasons. Growing up for me, I was not allowed to be sensitive. I wasn't allowed to show my emotions. I was told you need to be tough.
Yeah.
You can't cry. You have no reason to cry. You know, you have no reason to be open with your emotions. And I think for a lot of people, it was that way.
Yeah.
And not for a lot of people, but for a lot of people who fear vulnerability, it was that way for them. So that kind of like shell shocked us into just being numb. And not allowing our emotions to flow through us and such. So we fear being vulnerable because of that. We've always been so uptight and tough and what we consider strong. And, you know, we've always looked to vulnerability as such weakness because of that. So those preconceived notions for me has kept me like
bound.
Yeah, like armored up.
Yeah.
And feeling like I just have to be like on defense all the time.
Yeah. I think I got to a point where I felt like crying, it was no purpose in showing that emotion because it did nothing for me. Like I would block off my feelings so much that I would not allow myself to feel anything. And I just felt like crying there was just no purpose because nobody, I feel like in my family or how I was raised, acknowledged my emotions. Yeah, like they never really nurtured or asked me, why do you feel that way? You know what I mean? How can we help you get through this? It was just like you go through things and you gotta. For me, I had to just figure it out. And I thought being young that, you know, crying and showing your emotions and opening up to people, that did make you weak, but in all, it really doesn't. It allows you to grow. Like you can allow those feelings to flow through you versus hoarding them all in, which is not good. So I think, you know.
Let me ask you this. Were you bullied when you were younger? Like ever?
Yeah, I kind of got bullied like in 7th. Yeah, it started in 7th grade.
Okay. Like, did you ever go home and talk about it or try to talk about it with your mom or whomever?
I remember going home in 7th grade, telling my mom.
Not in 7th grade.
Yeah, because I remember
She said going home in the 7th grade.
Oh, I'm sorry, y'all.
So no, I mean, you're not saying anything wrong, but it's just so vivid. You know,
because that was like a time for me. Middle school was not a good time for me. I feel it just wasn't. It was that time where you kind of understand that you have insecurities, you know what I mean? You realize that you have flaws and people start to talk about things. When I was in 6th and 5th grade, I didn't care about nothing really. But I remember going home telling my mom that I was ugly because I felt like I didn't look like how other girls look. I didn't have that confidence or exude in certain ways that guys would come my way. I didn't know how to be myself. Like I didn't know how to flow through being an individual. I just was seeing other people be a certain way and I'm like, damn, I'm not like that. And nobody at home nurtured or I feel like embraced the beauty in me. Like it was just not something that I was taught more so. So it's like, and people would talk about me because certain clothes that I would wear, like being straight real, like in 7th grade, shit, I was wearing like boy clothes, like shit that was passed down to me that I had to wear because it was what I had at the time. And that really like, I'll never forget that. Like I remember that point in time. That's why I told my mom, like, you know, man, like I'm ugly. Like people are talking about me. I didn't know how to deal with that.
What was her response?
She cried. That was the first thing. And she told me, she was like, you know, you're not ugly. And I'm like, well, that's not how I feel. You know, when you're young, you don't know how to allow emotions to flow through you. You just like soak it all in. For me, I did. Like I just sank in that ugliness. I feel like it was a certain way you were supposed to look as a girl. And I feel like I didn't fit that part. So it was a really tough time for me, you know, and I let people tell me what they think about me. I didn't know how to just be like, forget them people. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like really hard, like for me. Did you get bullied when you were younger?
Oh, yes. Come on. Did I get bullied? Shit.
How did you handle it?
Well, let me first tell you how I was bullied because you were very open about that. So I want to be open about it. So y'all see me. Okay. Y'all see me now. You know how I look and everything. But when I was younger, I had a little bitty body and a big ass head. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I still have a big head, but my body has grown into it. But I was really skinny with a huge head. So everyone pointed that out. Like, oh, you know, Kedrick has a fat ass head or whatever the case was. And then not only that, my brother was super cool and super open and talkative, and I was very quiet. So people compared us a lot because we looked alike. And they would be like, she's so shy and she's so quiet and she's so this and that. So because I was quiet and I was timid, people bullied me because of that, and made fun of my head. And like you said, like the clothes you wore, like I wore the same pair of shoes the entire school year, and people notice that type of stuff. They pay attention, and people would point that out. You know what I mean? And when I went home about it, my folks was like, you better toughen up because I got you that.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was really because they picked the shit out.
Yeah. It wasn't.
They picked the shoes out. So they wanted me to be okay with the shoes because they picked them out.
It's like, come
you know what I mean?
on.
No, but like seriously. So I was like, yeah, they're making fun of me because of these Shaqs. You know what I mean? Like they got...
Wait a minute. Not the Shaqs, man. Not the Shaqs. But them bro, because was like, y'all, I used to think the hoes was so clean, and then like after middle
this is
school,
what they would do, bro.
Them hoes was not.
So
it.
this, you know, the Shaq, like the way he jump shot. The way he shot was different from Jordan.
But they was dogs when they was dogs. Yeah.
The way he shot was different from Jordan's. Yeah. So, you know, when they would see that Shaq jump shot on the shoe, I could laugh about it now. That shit funny. Right. Like, when I really think about it now, Shaq has an ugly ass jump shot. Like, the way he shoots, it's ugly. And so people would point that out, like, specifically, like the logo and such.
I'm sorry. Because I'm thinking about times where I wore ugly ass shoes and people would like cook my ass, like talk shit.
For real, like, and then in New Orleans, like, okay, so in New Orleans to make fun of people, it's called ribbing. Like, they ribbing you. So it's a really big thing in New Orleans to rib people. Like, they don't care how you feel. New Orleans people are heartless. Let me tell you, like, my siblings, like, they ribbed me to death. You know what I mean? To where I was always being talked about, even when I went home. You know what I mean? Because like when you're raised like that, which my siblings are older than me and they were raised like that, you think that that's okay. You think that shaming people and making them feel bad first is a way to build their character, and it's not. Haven't you heard the phrase praised and criticism?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So people think that that is a method in which to help people grow and feel better about themselves. But if you're taking them down to pick them up, understand that takedown is so hard. You know what I mean? To where sometimes people never come back from that.
Yeah.
So I was talked about at home by all my older siblings, and you know, because they were talked about and they were brought up like that, so they thought it was okay. And then when I went to school, it was the same way, you know. And like you mentioned, like you weren't praised or told you were pretty at home and stuff like that. So I had no idea that I was anything other than what, you know, big head ass Kedrick and some fucking Shaqs. Yeah. I didn't know that I was anything other than that because that's all I heard. And it was hard for me to get vulnerable because of that. I'm like, I'm not opening up to nobody. Right. You got me fucked up. I'm not opening up to anybody and telling you how I feel because you make me feel like such shit. I don't want to even speak about it. Right. You know? So that's what it was like for me. I would go home and they're like, you better go back to school and do this, that, and the third, or I'm going to whoop your ass. And I'm like, so you going to whoop my ass because another kid wants to whoop my ass too? So I'm just getting my ass whooped all over. You know what I mean? So I know that people follow what they know and what they were taught, but that does not make it okay. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like with that, that's a huge reason why a lot of people fear vulnerability. But we have some points here as to how we feel like vulnerability could be looked at better, and that could help our generation open their minds up to it. First of all, starting with the fact that vulnerability is reached through connections. Yes. With people.
Yes. because you just can't do it alone. Like, I can't sit here and just get vulnerable with myself but close myself off to other people and expect myself to grow, because I'm going to be in my head about everything, and I'm going to tell myself, like, well, yeah, I'm doing this right.
Of course you're doing everything right. Like, if you're only telling yourself that.
Like, exactly. Like, me and Key went to the store the other day, and we met a guy at the store. Really cool dude. Really nice, open with who he was. Like, he knew what he was coming in. Like, he knew himself.
He told us about being bullied.
Yeah.
Like, how he was bullied. And he told us straight up, this is what stood out to me the most about him. He said, if you respect me, I'll respect you. Mm-hmm. And then he gave us the background as to what I love about people is people, people like him, rather, mm-hmm. is people who not only tell you what their boundaries are and how they want to be treated, but where they come from and why they are that way. Yeah. So he said, if you respect me, I'll respect you. Mm-hmm. And also he mentioned being bullied.
Yeah.
And how people bullied him to the point of, because he kept saying he has a lot of enemies. And I'm like, wait, cuz who? So, that's just me personally. I just feel like that vulnerability is typically shared in connections and with other people. Of mm-hmm. course, when you're alone, you're alone. So it's kind of hard to really just get that into practice. So mm-hmm. we think it's important that you practice vulnerability through your connections with people. And just going into this second point, there's no vulnerability without empathy.
Yeah.
If you can't get out of your own head and try to understand the emotions of another person or what that other person is going through, experiencing, whatever, it's really hard to connect with a person that way. Like we spoke about being bullied. Just imagine if you tried to understand why I wore Shaqs instead of just judging me or shaming me for it. We could have better connected off of that, right? Mm-hmm. Versus you saying, oh, look at your Shaqs, you know what I mean? Look at your hair, look at your body,
Shaming.
Look at your, you know what I mean? Like that does not make a person want to open up to you.
Right.
That shuts a person off to you. And just not even only you, but in the future, people move forward like that. So just, I feel like there is such importance in being able to empathize and understand the next person, the situation outside of just you.
Right.
And who you are. And I get that we were all raised differently. We were all shown different things. And you may find something to be okay, but that doesn't mean that that's okay to the other person that you're directing that towards. It's just something to really be mindful of. Like empathy and vulnerability go hand in hand.
Right.
If not, it is so easy to shame or judge another person when you're not trying to empathize. And when I say trying to empathize, like empathizing really takes effort. You don't mm-hmm. just automatically empathize. It's not just well, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, even if you've been through something similar, if you don't share that, if you don't open yourself up to being vulnerable.
Right.
And saying, hey, I know what that's like. Mm-hmm. Hey, I may not know what that's like, but I could see how you struggled with that. If you don't take the time out to do that, then you're left no choice but to judge or to shame that person. So I feel like it's so important to empathize when being vulnerable. You know what I mean? Like, it takes you to be vulnerable to even... how do you expect another person to be vulnerable with you when you won't even get vulnerable?
Exactly. Like we tend to block ourselves off of empathizing with other people, and we wonder why we don't have bonds or connections with real people. You know what I mean? Like we expect the other person to let it all out and open up to us, but we don't even want to, allow them in or even empathize with what they're going through, or how can they be beneficial to our lives. Like, it's just really, I had to learn to get out of my head. You know what I mean? Like, people, I'm not the only one in this world that's going through something. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, some things are very painful where it'll have you thinking like, man, I'm the only person that's going through something, and have you thinking about everything about yourself. And really, when you open up and you express how you're feeling and what you're going through, that's how you get the healing that you need.
Right. And sometimes, and another point is that a lot of people feel like, okay, well, I went through something similar and I'm not reacting the way that you're reacting. Just imagine actually being vulnerable in that moment and letting that person know that you went through something similar. Like the two heads combined can come up with something much more resolving or much more comforting than you just saying, well, I dealt with the same thing, so you need to deal with it too.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, get beside yourself.
Yes.
Like, you can very much so learn something from that other person and get some type of assistance yourself from that other person just by putting your heads together. You know, I get that. I mean, other than you may not have, experienced the same situation as another person. Sometimes the case is you did experience something similar, but you dealt with it differently.
Right. And that person needs your perspective. They may need that way that you took to go about a situation. Like, have you ever been told, just get over it?
Oh, gosh, yes. Or, why are you acting like that? You don't have to act like that. And that is the worst. I feel like that's the worst response, because not only did you totally dismiss what I said, which was how I feel, you are now projecting your fears or inflicting whatever it is that you do to go about situations onto me, which may not be helpful to me or you even, because you won't get vulnerable. Understand, again, if there's no empathy, there's no vulnerability
at all.
So if you're not empathizing, you're not getting vulnerable. And if you're not getting vulnerable, truth be told, I don't want to have the conversation with you.
Right.
I don't want to get vulnerable with someone who doesn't want to be vulnerable as well. And I feel like going into point number 3, many of us fear vulnerability because we fear being rejected. We fear rejection. We fear that the other person may not agree. The other person may look at us differently, may not want to talk to us anymore, may not want to deal with us. That employer may not want to hire us.
Right.
That girl may not want to date you. That guy may not want to date you. So we fear being vulnerable because we don't want to be rejected. We don't want to be told no. So we're just like, you know what? I'm not opening up. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not getting to that point of just speaking from how I really feel. I'm not taking that step. I'm not following that career venture. I'm not doing any of those things because you may not like me.
And it's like sitting in rejection does not allow you to truly grow. Like, okay, that no may come now, but there's always a yes if you keep going. You know what I mean? You have to fight through being able to get through those hard obstacles that aren't as comfortable as others, and just truly, rejection will teach you to be yourself no matter what. You know what I mean? Like, I think what I've learned from being able to push through rejection is that, okay, I'm a little bit closer to where I really want to be. You know what I mean? Like, it's all about perspective. And if we don't get to that point of opening up, we don't, like, being vulnerable, we don't really truly get what we want. And I want what, I want to be the best version of myself that I could be. You know what I mean? But if I hold back, if I don't truly say what I got to say or say what's on my mind, how do I get there?
How do you push through that fear without actually doing it?
Right.
I feel like in order to get beyond fear, you have to do what you're fearful of. And it takes being vulnerable. Truth be told, like, a lot of what's on the other side of where you are now and where you want to be is you being vulnerable.
Yep.
Like I said before, not just in relationships, friendships, but jobs. Like, if you want that job, be vulnerable enough to show up to that interview, apply to it. You want to start that business, be vulnerable enough to start that business, not knowing what type of feedback you're going to receive. Like what we're doing right now, honestly, I don't know anyone else who's doing it. So that alone is a scary factor, because it's like, okay, no one else is doing it, so no one really knows how to respond to this. It's so different. It's something outside of the norm. Right. We're not on here cracking jokes. We're not talking pop culture. We're talking about real life, a lot of what people avoid. So, but we're doing it though.
Right. We're pushing through.
We're doing it.
Yeah.
So you have to get past, oh, I may be rejected. Like for me, like I feel like after being bullied, after being shamed so much when I was younger, after having failed relationships, I feared really getting vulnerable with people. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't want to open up to anybody because I'm like, you don't understand me. That was my favorite thing to say.
Me too. Nobody
my
understood
favorite thing
me.
to say was because no one else did.
Yeah.
You don't understand me.
Right.
Like you don't get me. You're not going to get me because, and I feel like now I understand more why I said that is because a lot of people don't take the time out to understand you. Mm-hmm. They place you in this box of who they want you to be, how they want you to be, and how they want you to take what they give to you or how they treat you. People tell you how you should react all the time. And I'm like, no, you should hear out what that person is telling you in order to understand that person. That's empathizing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like you can't tell me how to feel. You can't tell me how to react.
Right.
You can't tell me how to be. But you can try to understand who I am and why I'm the way I am. So I used to always tell people, you don't understand me.
Right.
You just don't understand me. But that just comes to play with people not wanting to get vulnerable enough to empathize with people and stuff like that.
And
so
taking that effort. That takes a lot of effort.
It does. Now, going into the very last point, we talked about fear and rejection. Mm-hmm. Now, at the same time, lastly, you can't be vulnerable without boundaries.
No.
You can't be vulnerable without boundaries because even though even though we feel it's important to be vulnerable to get to that next step or that next level, you have to do it with boundaries or you'll take any and everything.
Right.
And guess what you're going to get? Any and everything. People are going to treat you any type of way because you don't stand for anything. You're not stating like, oh boy did at the grocery store, respect me, I respect you.
Right.
You're not stating that up front because you don't have that boundary placed up for yourself. So
you got to tell people how what you like or what you don't like. You got to set the tone. You know what I mean? Most of the time we go into situations not having ourselves or not being able to be secure with what we believe in and what we stand for. And then we just get, like you said, we get any and everything. I mean, what do you expect?
I mean, truth be told, not everyone wants to be respected. So you got to say out loud, I want you to, look,
right.
I expect you to respect me. I respect you too because, I mean.
That's what it is.
Not everyone cares enough. Like there is truthfully people who just want to hear what they want to hear. Yeah. So if you agree with them, they're cool with that. Mm-hmm. You know, and then there's people who are like, look, tell me the truth. I'll be truthful with you.
Exactly.
I'll be open and honest with you. So it is important to be mindful of who you're getting your intel from. And not only that, who you're opening up to, you know, who you're trusting, who you're allowing to, like, in some way lead you. Mm-hmm. I mean, because even us, like, I try to be a bit open on social media, like my personal page, just to show you who I am as a person and how I live, because I don't expect you to believe anything I'm saying if you don't see how I really live and, you know, what I'm really about. And a lot of people have their different opinions on how people are on social media. Mm-hmm. I don't really care what other people do on social media. Do what you want to do. And that way I get to see you for who you are. Like, that's just how I see it. Like, I get to see, I mean, because you can't always. Okay, I can't even cap with y'all. The video keeps cutting out the audio, but we're just going to keep it going. But I was just saying that, you know, you can't take everything you see on social media serious. Just like you can't get so vulnerable on social media at the same time. Yeah. That's when you're boundaryless typically. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of people do a little more than you should on social media, but it's still not for us to judge, but at the same time, or shame, right?
Right.
But what we're doing is trying to assist you with knowing that you have to have boundaries with your vulnerability, with being vulnerable. And, you know, you just can't be vulnerable with everybody.
Right. Everybody doesn't deserve you at certain points. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things about yourself that you just shouldn't share with every single person you meet. You know what I mean? Like I think not necessarily everybody that comes into your life are like forever. There are people that are seasonal, and you know, it's just, you don't have to open your whole heart up to every single person you meet. You want to be yourself in every person that you meet, but you just want to, there's certain things I think that you should just kind of keep to yourself until you know, if you find out like, oh, this person is wanting to be more on a serious level or really wants to get to know me on that kind of level. That's another thing to pay attention to, is just know when people are interested, to really taking that time out to understand you. Because I think with me, I used to be I didn't have boundaries, so I would open up to every single person that I meet, and then I would get hurt, and then I wouldn't understand how to deal with certain things. And it's like, well, was that person even interested in me in the way that I was trying to be interested in them, or just getting to know them, or being more open, period. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking about too. When you're vulnerable, it is easier to get hurt. I think that's another thing we fear about vulnerability, is it is easy to be, or to get hurt when you're vulnerable. I mean, you can get hurt regardless. Although people say, oh, I don't have any feeling. Yeah, you still get hurt. You just don't express it. But it is easier to be hurt when you're vulnerable. That's why you have to be vulnerable with boundaries. And even then you can still get hurt. But just know that before you met that person, before you went to that job interview, you had yourself.
Yes.
And if that doesn't go the way you expected, you don't get the girl you want, you don't get the guy you want, you don't get the job you want, you still have what you had before.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're not losing anything.
Right. And you take that time to really evaluate on what you may need to work on, or what you could do better, you know, or just understand that everything just isn't going to go the way that you plan it every single time. The world does not revolve around us. We get what we need, not always what we want. And that, I think that's like a really deep lesson, or something to really take in. Is like, we think we want these things, and we ask for certain things, or we go after certain things, but we don't necessarily always get what we want, but we get what we need. And it's all about perspective.
Yeah, I truly feel like vulnerability opens up the doors to just true joy and happiness and creativity, and like we mentioned, empathy. So there's so much that comes from being vulnerable if you just remember to have boundaries, have yourself, be yourself, and just know that you don't have anything to lose when you have boundaries.
Yeah.
So vulnerability is not so bad. Again, like what we're doing is being vulnerable here, right? And this is so great for us. This is so great for those who were able to help. So this is just a true representation of vulnerability, and how it is a great thing. Although a lot of people may not agree, or may not be ready to listen to what we're speaking about, you know, you may not be ready to take that walk in your life, and that's okay. You know, we all get there at different times, different points in our life. So vulnerability, all in all,
it's necessary.
Even though I said my palms are sweating, it is a good thing. I feel good about this. I feel good about practicing vulnerability in my connections with people. Like, I find that I learn more about that person because they're more open to me, because they see that I'm being vulnerable, and I'm more open to being vulnerable, and just knowing that even if this situation doesn't go the way that I planned it out in my head or expect it to, beyond that, I can keep trying this, and who knows? You know, you just never know what you're going to get out of it. So let's normalize vulnerability.
Yes.
Let's make it normal.
We have to. I feel like another thing is that it feels good when someone's being vulnerable with you, because that means that they trust you. You know, like we go through this phase of having trust issues, but when somebody really opens up and tell you what's on their mind, it's like, dang, you know, I care about you. You know, I'm here for the long run. Or you just, in general, you trust me. And that's a good feeling, you know, because we go through life and we find ourselves in situations where people mistreat us. People don't trust us. We don't trust ourselves. So it's just, honestly, I'm glad we talked about being vulnerable. I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because as we're talking and we're expressing the way we feel, I'm like, okay, I'm really opening up. Like, I feel like I'm growing.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
So,
like, I'm practicing vulnerability throughout my life now, and it's shaky. Like there's moments where I'm vulnerable and my voice is trembling. I'm nervous. I'm shy about it, but I'm like, shit, I'm doing it at the end of the day. And I hope that that person appreciates or respects it. And if they don't, it doesn't just stop there.
Right.
If wherever, you know, whomever it is, whatever the situation is, if the, you know, how I plan it to go or expect it to go in my head doesn't go that way, still, you know, I still have me at the end of the day, and I did not lose anything.
Nope.
So
I'm liking it. New, you know,
I'm liking it.
Yeah. It keeps you going. You know, we stop at opening up. We might as well just stop living at that point, because we stop experiencing. We don't get to those new levels. Like,
right.
I'm always intrigued by just getting to a new level. Like, what else can I learn? How else can I be a better person? So without vulnerability, I can't achieve what I really want to achieve.
You don't, because when you armor up, you hold yourself back, because like we mentioned, the definition of vulnerability is little resistance.
Yes.
You know, and like, honestly, I feel like I'm getting so much better with just who I am as a person and how I feel about myself. I'm thinking about buying another pair of Shaqs.
Fuck it. You might as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Like,
you got the confidence now.
I can't even take my... Yeah, because, I mean...
Who cares?
Why not?
I mean...
People are making Skechers high. They're making, what are those shoes called? Crocs?
Oh, yeah,
they got, like,
Crocs.
the Bad Bunny Crocs. Like, all these different customized Crocs and stuff. So, I'm thinking about buying another pair of Shaqs.
You could start your little trend.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
You got my support.
Appreciate that. But, check this out. Don't forget to subscribe.
Yes.
Like this video.
Share it.
Leave a comment.
All of that.
It may take a little vulnerability to do that,
but
just do it.
Right.
Share this. I mean, you share all of your celebrity idols stuff, you know.
Why not share our stuff?
I think that it's easy to do that because they don't know you and they're not seeing it, and everyone else is doing it. So it doesn't really take much effort because you're not really being different. You are... I just realized I broke... How the fuck? Anyways, you're not really being different. You're not doing anything outside of the norm. So, of course, it's like, oh, yeah, let me just do it. Everyone else is doing it. But when you share something that is different and that you know that you truly got some help from, you know, that's the cool thing to do. The cool thing... What's cool to me is being an individual and doing whatever it is that you enjoy.
Exactly.
And that you like, regardless of what people are going to think about it. So look, share this video. Don't care. Don't worry about what anyone has to say about the fact that you're intrigued by personal growth and development, and that you're learning about being vulnerable. We support you.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you something, like, well, for me, coming from a woman, I think that it's very attractive for a man to be comfortable with being vulnerable. That's a man to me.
Right.
If you can't be vulnerable, you're not a man, in my opinion. So, you know, if you know, take it from an actual woman, not these little fees that be telling you you gotta pretend that you're all tough and strong and alpha male, you know. But a true alpha male not only leads his family and takes care of his family, but he gets vulnerable. And he's able to empathize and understand outside of himself, because in order to lead people, you have to understand the emotions of other people and such. You can't just lead people off the basis of who you are and what you think. But that's enough. You know what I mean? I don't want to even go too much further into this. I'm trying to wrap it up, you know, but thank you guys for your support.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your support.
Yes.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for following us along this journey.
Yeah.
And until next time, I don't know if y'all thought we weren't going to come back, but we back. We back, and we're going to keep going with this. Yes. Despite of the technical difficulties. We got to push through. You have to push through.
No matter what. Because if you don't, how do we get better?
Right. We don't.
So, we love you guys.
We love you guys.
Until next time. Bye.